Christmas week. I know we were saying it before. We're in the red zone of the holiday season, but I mean, for real, like right now. And it's, you know what amazed me? We'll get to the stuff in a second. Hold on. But I just saw a consumer story that said most people, the majority of Americans, have only completed an estimated 40% of their Christmas shopping. And boy, did that make me feel better. If you're either a busy person or a procrastinator or both, use that. Maybe make it feel better about yourself. All right, thanks for finding Wicked Radio, the live stream and the replay on podcast, audio version, and on X and on YouTube and Facebook and everywhere else. I appreciate you so much, especially during this busy time. Busy travel week, everything else, but we still have stories going on. Our feature story is one that absolutely fascinates me, and I will tell you, my absolute favorite stories are the ones that fool me at first, where I see it and I'm like, oh, that's obvious why that happened. Because I'm supposed to be the one, my media training taught me to look beyond the headlines and find out what it actually means and what you can do about it, right? So the stories that fool me at first, where I have to take a second look at it and go, wait a minute. I love that because it challenges me too. And I'm talking about the story of the Pennsylvania bus driver. She's 66 years old and she got fired for an English-only sign on her bus. And at first, like maybe you're thinking, you're like, well, you can't do that. Obviously, you're going to get fired. Listen to her reasoning when we get to this story, and you may second guess yourself like I did on this. Also, just news-wise, J.D. Vance has officially jumped into the race. Or has he been coronated? We don't really like that too much. Hey, we didn't like it when they did it to Kamala Harris. Kind of forced that down people's throats as a presidential candidate, right? Why should we with him? I don't know. And we also have another story that President Trump is having way too much fun with. This story about his name being put on the building, the sign, the name of the Kennedy Center, the meltdown over this is amazing. It's amazing how just different people focus on minor things. They're actually calling this, lots of people in the media and people on the street, it's another sign of the death of democracy. Anyway, we'll get to all that. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. I'm going to get to the news story first before the feature story because that's going to take a little bit of time to go through. But this happened over the weekend. Now, it was a big, I think it was, what'd they call it? Freedom Fest? I'm not exactly too sure. But it was the big Turning Point USA rally. Big event for that side of the aisle. And get together and honor Charlie Kirk, a bunch of different speakers. Well, J.D. Vance was there. And boy, did this sound like he was a presidential candidate. Now, everybody pretty much assume that he's going to be the guy that they go for it. He'll be the guy that, unless something happens and there's a big fight in the Oval Office, he'll be the guy that President Trump nominates, he'll campaign for in a couple of years. This sure sounded like his first presidential speech, though, didn't it?
The Democrats are already talking about 2028, and it looks like they're going to nominate a California liberal who's presided... A California liberal who's presided over rolling blackouts, open borders, and unchecked violent gangs.
Well, here's the thing, though, too, on that side, and let's talk about both sides of this, you know what I mean? I'm not shilling for anybody. I just shill for the American people and common sense. It sounded like they decided on J.D. Vance, too, over the weekend. It sure did. Now, they'll have, obviously, they'll have the nomination process, and they'll have debates, and they'll have, the primaries, but it sure sounds like they've already decided, at least the GOP has. At least the Trump-run GOP has already decided J.D. Vance is the guy, right? Not saying it's good or bad. In fact, I may be a big supporter of that. Wasn't it too early for that? No, strategically, I get that. I totally understand it. You start speaking like a president. And by the way, this was a shift in tone. Obviously a very friendly crowd, but this was a shift in tone with J.D. Vance because beyond all that, it was a big, long speech, like 15 minutes. Usually up to this point, he's just talking about the administration. He's supporting, the Trump agenda. He's supporting America first, obviously. A lot of this speech was supporting himself, and I get that. Politically, you have to do that. He was, I think, unofficially... He threw his hat in the ring over the weekend at that speech. I think so anyway. Too early? Strategically, no, because you got to get a jump on this thing. But supposedly we don't like coronations in this country. I don't know. Maybe it's too early, maybe it's not. We shall see. All right, let's get to our feature story. And I don't usually do this to you. I apologize. I try to keep the talking empty suit news people to a minimum. But in this one, we kind of have to take it in steps to go through the news story out of Pennsylvania. So you're going to have to suffer through the local yokel news story of the lady going, a bus driver in Pennsylvania fired for her. You know, they all sound like that. They're trained to talk like that, like they take the humanity out of them. Anyway, this is the story that has gripped the nation. Remember it was last week we had Jeannie from Target who got harassed in Target because she was wearing a Freedom shirt? Funny enough, speaking of Charlie Kirk. And she was accosted there, and then they had a big fundraiser for her with Give, Send, Go, and then America supported her, basically. I think Diane Crawford, the 66-year-old bus driver from Pennsylvania, is this week's Jeannie from Target. She really is. Because here's the long and short of the story, and they'll go through the details. She's been fired from her job as a bus driver, like an independent contractor, with the school district there, because she put up an English-only sign on her bus. Now, like I said, when I first looked at this story, I said, well, that's just, you can't, of course they're going to fire her for that. Shame on me. Maybe shame on you. Shame on everybody for not looking deeper into the headlines. This is what I try to get everybody to do, including myself, and apparently I didn't. You got to read deeper into the headlines to understand the reason why, and then you can understand something to do about it. She has a very specific, and to me now, watching this story like 5 times, a very specific and a very solid reason for putting up that sign. Should she have worded it better? Oh, God, yeah. But she's 66. They were more direct than we were growing up. They just were. Should she have done it at all or taken? Maybe she did take different steps. All right, like I said, you're going to have to suffer through the bus driver in Pennsylvania newscaster on this. We'll take it in steps, but you kind of have to get the gist of this story. Here we go. Here's the beginning of it. This is Jeannie Crawford fired for her English-only sign on her very own bus. But you got to get to her reasoning before you understand the story.
I do care. I care about a lot.
Caring is exactly what Diane Crawford says led her to serve the Juniata County School District and subcontract with Rohrer Bus.
I don't know what else to do. I get Medicare and Medicaid now and SNAP. I had to go on antidepressants because of this.
Crawford says her contract with Rohrer Bus came to a halt February 1st after she put up this sign which read, "Out of respect to English-only students, there will be no speaking Spanish on this bus."
Okay, so there's the story. This is what we got so far. And sorry, was I right or was I right about the news lady? Fired for her sign. They just all sound like that. They just do. Anyway, all right, she's 66. You saw her sadness there at the beginning. She doesn't know what to do. She's obvious. This is her job. She's an independent contractor. Says she has to go on antidepressants. And that's the sign. Which basically, an English-only sign, but said there will, and this is part of what got her in trouble. This is why the message is always so important. But she's 66. Come on, give her a break. There will be no speaking of Spanish on this bus. This is an English-only bus, is what she's saying, which got her in trouble. Let's pause for a second and ask, okay, how does this wind up with the school district and her contractor basically losing her job, basically is what it is. Some kid complained to a parent. Parent gets outraged, no matter what it is, English-speaking parent or non-English-speaking parent, and they get it to the school district, and that causes a ruckus, and that's what it is, right? The first question, now I'll be completely honest with you. I first see the story, I'm like, well, that's an unforced error. You don't do something like that. Hold on. Shame on me for not digging deeper into the story. She has a very specific reason for why she did this. Was it worded as, tactfully as it should have been? No, absolutely not. In her eyes, it was completely polite. In her eyes, it makes complete sense, and maybe it does. But you start to get into this a little bit more, and you understand why she did it this way.
I didn't mean to be racially insensitive or anything like that.
Crawford claims she never got to explain that the sign was put up to encourage safe and respectful behaviors and was directed at a bilingual student who allegedly had a history of riling up other students.
I didn't know if he was bullying somebody, telling them to do something they shouldn't do. How do you keep control of your bus if you have no control?
The crux of the story, and this is what changed my mind on it, and it took me a few times to see this exactly. Now, was that her original intent? I don't know, but a great explanation for what it is. Again, if she wrote this and communicated this better, would have been a different story. First and foremost, and I have no proof of this whatsoever, we're probably never going to find out. What would you like to bet, though, that the Spanish-speaking student that was causing all the trouble was the one to complain because actually could read the sign. It just tends to lead to that. Or maybe it was all the students complaining about the sign and got her fired. I don't know. Now, in the community, supposedly she is very much beloved. That's how they describe it in the news story. So there's a lot of support in the community. And now that this is becoming a story, like I said, she's like the new genie from Target. She's getting a lot of support nationally across the country from people. I think, I'm not too sure, is already like a give, send, go set up for her too. Because apparently we support with money these days. We can't reach that school district. But listen to what she said there. How am I supposed to keep control of my bus if I don't know what they're saying? And I don't know if there's bullying going on, or I don't know if they're getting other kids to rile up and misbehave otherwise if they're not speaking the same language. She puts it that way. That's a different story, isn't it? Now, imagine trying to be a bus driver in any age. I couldn't do it. My God. Can you imagine a bunch of screaming kids? Now, all of a sudden, they're screaming behind you, misbehaving, but you can't communicate with them. It's kind of a different story, isn't it? Goes on to explain it again. And sorry, this is more of the news lady, but still. Goes on to explain where we go from here.
And Roar Bus, writing in a joint statement today that the investigation had finished quickly after Crawford admitted to installing the note, writing, quote, "The relevant facts of the situation were fully known and discussed among district and Roar leadership, and that it was, quote, determined that the conduct did not align with the standards and expectations for student transportation providers."
Okay, that's from the school district. Okay, but there's the question. That's your reasoning on why you terminated this lady's contract. What's your transportation standards? What are they? Complete madness on this bus? Like, what happens if you have a kid, your child goes to this bus and gets the absolute pulp beaten out of him or her? You're gonna go to this school district and complain about it? And it just happens to be a student of a different language or origin or nationality or whatever it is, and because it's that, you can't complain somehow? What are your standards? Because it doesn't sound like any of it is clear. So absolutely she should have written that better. But is she wrong when you talk about a safety standpoint? Wouldn't you, let's say, completely not involved in this argument whatsoever, but you have a kid that is on that bus, wouldn't you want the bus driver to be able to understand and hear everything that's going on, to be able to communicate what those safety standards are on that bus? Because I would. So what really is the story here? And what's the pushback?
You regret making the sign?
Maybe I should have worded it different. Maybe I should have said bullying has no bullying in any language, but I didn't mean it to be anything but to correct him. I dedicated everything I had to driving bus. And it was for the kids. I love the kids. And the kids love me.
I don't think we're here to need to hear the news lady anymore, right? As you can see, the community loves her. Anyway, but it's true. So that's really the question, isn't it? Because these kinds of stories happen all the time where common sense doesn't prevail. Let's go to actually what happened here. Madness on a bus, and she couldn't understand what these kids who were causing trouble were saying. Couldn't tell if there was bullying going on because she couldn't understand what they were saying. So the overall message, even though maybe she didn't, and she admitted this, maybe she didn't word it as tactfully as should have been, her intent is clear. She wants a safe bus. She wants safe kids, wants to hold on to her job. Why do we always lose focus of what the hell is going on here? And this school district, in the name of compliance and diversity and making everybody happy, well, you're throwing this lady out into the street. Good job. Nice work. Well, here's the good part of it. There's always something good that comes of this. People push back now. I'm going to hope, I don't know this community and this township in Pennsylvania, but I'm going to hope that a lot of the pushback happened in this community because they should. This is a lady who's trying to do the right thing, who was fired because of how she worded a sign in your community. That's where it starts. But here's the really good thing. Because of, once again, kind of like Elon says, we're the media now, because of online stories, because of everybody having a social media account, because things like this catch on, she gets community support from the entire nation now to push back on this stuff. And I will tell you, if these kinds of things outrage you because this lady and her English-only sign was fired, feel better about this. Pushback is happening at a rapid pace. It wasn't just a massive story like last week, like Jeannie from Target. stories like this, stories across the board where people have had enough of the lack of common sense. Because that's what happened here, which happens in so many school districts every single time, right? When you have an administration in place, all they hear and all they see is like the first part of the story. Wait a minute. She wrote English only on a sign on this bus? Well, that's cut and dry. No, it's not cut and dry. You never get to what actually matters. She wanted her kids to be safer. That's obviously what she's saying. But did they bother looking into that? No, they didn't until now. Because keep an eye on this story to see if that community, that township, and the school administration and the company that hires her responds to this thing. Because people have had enough of this. If you get a hold of enough of these stories, people will push back and make a difference. That's the feel-good part of this story. That's the feel-good. The outrageous part is that that's still happening because she dared to try to get control of her bus. So I hope Diane Crawford from Pennsylvania gets her job back. I really do. That would be a nice Christmas story to follow up on. I hope so anyway. We shall see. Here's a story out of the news again, jumping back into headlines for a quick second. This happened over the weekend. And this is such a great example of why, you know, you always wonder, it's like, why does Trump, why does he, when he speaks live, why does he always make fun of the left when they're having these kinds of meltdowns? Why doesn't he just ignore it? Well, number one, he's enjoying it too much because it's just so funny to him. But there's a tactical reason, too, why this really helps him out, or even if you don't like Trump, you're still America first, whatever it is. The Kennedy Center story that popped up over the weekend, where basically the long and short of it is they announced that they're going to put Trump's name on the side of the Kennedy Center because he's done so much to refurbish that place and change the board. It's going to be the Kennedy Trump Center or Trump whatever. His name's going to be on the Kennedy Center in New York. So the traditional people who have been part of the Kennedy Center are having an absolute meltdown. In other words, and I'll just say it, the very far left-leaning liberals are melting down over this. Not just politicians, not just people who used to be part of the Kennedy Center, but everyday far left liberals too. Now, I've got a guy here to play that exemplifies this perfectly, but this is happening a lot. It's not just this guy. First of all, watch the meltdown. But there's an important reason why this really benefits Trump, these kinds of meltdowns. But listen to this guy. Again, he's spinning out of control because Trump's name is going to be on the Kennedy building.
Feeling like democracy died today. This is history happening today, and we should all be shocked that a felon, a convicted felon, and a thug, and by all means a grifter, has just stuck his name on top of a national monument.
My God. Boy, I tell you, you got to be living a charmed life if Trump's name being on the Kennedy Center it spins you out of control that badly. Wow. So Trump being Trump, and he enjoys this too much, so he keeps talking about that kind of thing and posting it and rubbing it in. That's just that's him. That's his personality. There's something more important though that gives Trump a bigger win than something like that guy or his name being on the building. Sure, his ego loves it, right? If it feeds into it, absolutely. Here's what this really means. If you have Democrat, and they pick up on this, you've already seen this maybe on CNN or MSNBC. If they get so worked up about a nominal, a tiny little story like this and make it such a big headline, and they're so worked up about it, make such a big deal, it's a massive beneficial distraction story for the Trump administration. That they love this kind of stuff because it allows them to work on other stuff that actually does make the country better. So these little, minuscule little issues that guys like that get so worked up over, it's a national nightmare, that is such a big win for Trump because he's got them absolutely mentally and emotionally broken. And it's huge for the America First movement. I can tell you that much. That guy is having a meltdown over a name. Anyway, let's get to some Christmas stuff because we're how many days away from the actual day? I was amazed by this. I was at an event over the weekend, and I actually saw a lot of people, and it was a physical activity event. And at the end of it, the place that was holding it was handing out little cups of eggnog. And I hadn't thought about eggnog for a long time, and I thought, do people still like eggnog? I mean, I may be completely out of it as far as eggnog is concerned because I've never really been into it. But apparently, there are a lot of people that love their eggnog. whether it's non-alcoholic or alcoholic. I didn't know this. Well, of course, especially during the holidays, there's always some kind of social survey study that fascinates me, especially around Christmas time, because a lot of surprising things are on there. This one is from Instacart. Obviously they're trying to figure out what people are buying, so they publish their stuff. They looked at their sales data, and Instacart's pretty big, so you would tend to imagine that it's pretty exact. People ordering eggnog through Instacart to get ready for Christmas Day, leading up to it, Christmas Eve, parties, whatever it is. Sales from the holiday season, and they put out a map of the states that love eggnog and the ones that hate it. So here's the tale of the tape. You ready? The states that supposedly love eggnog the most, the state that loves it of far and beyond, according to Instacart's number, above any other state is, are you ready? New Hampshire, the Granite State. Kind of makes sense. First of all, can you order like alcoholic beverage from Instacart? I don't even know. But I would imagine, being a big drinking state anyway, New Hampshire would be number one. That doesn't surprise me. Then Vermont, then Alaska. You getting the feel here? These are all cold weather states. Maine, Oregon, Wyoming, Utah, Washington State, Wisconsin, New Mexico. Now, this is why I may be confused. Even though I'm a New Englander, I was born and raised there. I've been in Florida a long time, so I've been out of the eggnog game. But it stands to reason why I have been. According to Instacart, the number one state that absolutely hates, almost nobody buys eggnog through their app, is Florida, where I am. It made me feel better. Now I understand why I've been out of the eggnog game so long and don't understand the appeal to it. Where I am right now, not a lot of people like it. I think this is all weather related. Like you're cold, you like to sit by the fire and have your eggnog for the holidays. That makes sense. It's still steaming hot where I am in the southeast. You don't want to be weighed down by that. So there's your holiday story for today. More tomorrow. The lighthearted filler stories. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you. All right. Audio podcast. By the way, programming note is growing by leaps and bounds. People still love audio, apparently. So I publish this, post the audio version right after we get off the live stream. So that's anywhere you want to find them. On Spreaker.com. That's one of them. Facebook, I'll have the audio link on there as well. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Spotify, you have to press like. That's your subscribe. Or iHeart. But we're all right. It's on there every single day right there, the audio version of this. So thank you so much for following that. And the YouTube channel for the replay and clips growing too. So give me a subscribe on there. And the replay on X and on Facebook. Long and short of it is all that crap. All right, the takeaway is you may be outraged by a lot of the stories you hear these days about like the bus driver getting fired for her English only sign. Or last week's story about Jeannie from Target, right? Feel good about this. There's still a prevailing sense of common sense in this country. And now the difference is people hear about these stories and push back. Why? Because we have this. We are the media now. It's true. People get a hold of these stories wherever they can, and they support common sense wherever they can. That's what should make you feel good about it. All right. Thanks for finding me. I appreciate you so much. Again, it's Christmas week. Get your shopping done if you partake. With all that said, make it a wicked awesome Monday. I'll talk to you tomorrow.